Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is your host, Gabriel Marrero, and I'm glad you can join me. This is Collapse Talk, and we have much to discuss. This has been quite an eventful past couple months. I do apologize. I wish I could have recorded earlier. I just got caught up with work and life stuff and, looking for apartments and such. So, yeah, it's just a lot. And I feel like today is an important day to record, just to get feelings of the situation. I'm recording on April 21st, 2025, and it is the day that Pope Francis has passed away. Of course, he was dealing with health issues earlier in the last couple of weeks. I think double pneumonia at one point, so it was very critical, and people were very much, sending thoughts and prayers, ironically, but no, He meant a lot for people, and I certainly recognize. I mean, I'm an atheist. I'm not a practicing Catholic, but with him, Pope Francis, I did quite like him, and I did feel like he did good with his position. I mean, look, man, religion is a very powerful tool. It's a very real, tangible, social structure. So, it is one thing when you have these youth pastors or these evangelical mega churches that just are really just a tax evasion scheme. That's one thing. And of course you want to respect people's faith, but it's very clear that that individual who's leading the church is using it for their own personal gain and profit. And I'm not saying that the Vatican Church doesn't have their own, interests at heart. I mean, yeah. But, I think with Pope Francis, he used his position for good and to speak on real issues like poverty. And, he's trying to relax the church when it comes to its stance on LGBTQ, just queer individuals in general, trying to make the church more accepting for that. I think that's a good development that he made. Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot, and it's kind of funny because when you're this is because I never really talk about being Catholic on this show, but it's just it's okay. So it's weird because you're raised into this, right? And it's one thing when it's culturally being a Catholic, because my family comes from the Dominican Republic, so it's a very deeply Catholic country. There are some voodoo practices that we have, folk traditions, African indigenous traditions. But for the most part, at least my family, we're very Catholic. And, I'm of course, sort of a black sheep, being more secular, atheistic. And, part of the reservations that I had growing up, at least, is just, especially when I was learning about the history of colonialism in Latin America and learning about the Crusades, it's we did some really messed up shit. So, that was sort of my awakening and sort of stepping away because I didn't really recognize with that. But, and when it comes to at least growing up in my sort of church setting, it was interesting because it was nice, it was a small little congregation. I lived in St. Croix, so small congregation and primarily Afro Latino community environment. So it's sort of interesting, I mean, again, that was years ago, so I can't really remember much. But yeah, it was just nice, when people talk about Catholic Church, right? They talk about were they diddle you or something? And it's just no, it's pretty normal, pretty low key, communal setting. And I got my first communion there. I've never been confirmed, so I don't know. Maybe I'll get into purgatory or something. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, if I marry a Catholic girl, it's gonna be a problem. But no. It's just sort of growing up. There were some issues that I had to deal with because I was into dinosaurs and to extinct animals and such. I mean, that was the first field that I wanted to get into was paleontology, and that sort of sparked my scientific appreciation, and starting to go down that path of secularism and such. And that was an issue during Sunday school, because then I would be talking about dinosaurs. I mean, again, when you're like a little autistic kid, like you just hyper fixated on one subject, and then of course you have to deal with some adult coming in and being like, oh, well, that didn't happen, or anyway. So that was sort of like a thing growing up, where I was like stuck between two worlds of like science and religion, and like I was like having a real crisis. Like it was kind of messed up, really. Like I was, anyway. Yeah. So, I mean, that's sort of like where I kind of stepped away from faith and religion. And again, I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm going to be born again. No, it's, I'm still pretty firmly secular, and of course I'm like a Marxist. So, still very much in that secular world. But then when you have somebody like Pope Francis who uses that position to, try to have a positive influence and positive sort of spirituality. Because again, it's good. It's nice when people who use their religion, who really humble themselves and try to benefit the less fortunate people, because that's what Jesus did, right? Like, it's funny when I talk about religion, especially like American Christianity, like, My issue isn't with Jesus, right? Like, I very much appreciate that story and what it represents and how it inspires people to do good. But then, of course, you have people who, especially evangelical Christians, American Christians, who take that and be like, oh, I love Jesus, so that makes me a good person automatically. So that's why it's okay for me to, attack trans people and like send migrants into death camps and commit genocide in the Middle East, like, because I love Jesus and my soul, like, it's, yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to think about like the Easter like little festival photo op that they did at the White House yesterday, and like all the fucking evil people there. My God, it's just, I don't know, man, it's just so perverted, everything. I don't mean to get all like spiritual or religious, but it's something to talk about, especially since the Pope just passed away. And, I definitely think that he did good with the time that he had. Yeah. I was sort of thinking about going to a Catholic mass, but I don't know anybody out here, so it's whatever. Yeah, and it was funny too. I was like talking to like one lady. She's from El Salvador, so I was like trying to explain like El Papa se murió, and she thought, because we work in a retirement home, so she thought it was like somebody, like one of the residents. I'm like, no, like El Papa Católico. So it was, yeah, a little funny thing. Yeah, but at least it's interesting. And there's also the recent like meeting that he had with JD Vance. So I guess like they almost snubbed him, like, because at first they had like an official, like a cardinal, visit JD Vance and sort of like lecture him about like humility and such. And then JD Vance actually did meet up with Pope Francis, and 12 hours later, like a couple hours later, the Pope dies. Like, oh, like shit, like this guy fucking gave him some sort of curse or something. He's the Antichrist. That is quite funny. Well, not funny for the Pope, but like just that JD Vance is associated with that. And like he just had like a recent like photo op also with the Ohio State football team. Like they won the national championship, and then they went to do the photo op, I guess. And fucking JD Vance tries to pick up the trophy. I don't know why. Like, you're not on the team, bro. And then he almost like dropped. Well, I mean, he dropped the base and then like the actual trophy. It's just like, why? Like, why would you pick that up? He's just like, God. Oh my God. That's how you know, like, his mom was really like doing that like shit. Like, like what? Like, why would you compel yourself? Some like ADHD kid who can't keep his hands to himself. I'm sorry, I don't mean to go that way, but anyway, yeah, JD Vance met with the Pope, and the Pope died a couple hours later, and they're saying that he got a stroke. So it's like, who knows what happened in that conversation that they had? Like, did Who fucking knows, man? Oh my god. Like, and that's the thing too, because JD Vance, he's like a Catholic convert. Why? Like, why? Like, I don't understand these converts. They're so weird. Like, they watch Kingdom of Heaven, and then they're like, "Hey, those Templar guys who just want to constantly go to war and like attack innocent Muslims. Those are the good guys. Yeah, I want to be like them. Like, that's literally like what this like new wave of like Catholic converts is. And then they convert to Catholicism, and then whenever Pope Francis says something like, hey, let's not attack gay people, and like, let's not destroy Gaza, you know, let's pray for Gaza. Like, they're just like, I can't believe the Pope has so much authority. Somebody needs to stop him. It's just like, oh my god, like, dude, just anyway, I don't understand some people like that. It's, again, that's how you know that these fascists, they're just shallow, like surface level people, and it's just aesthetic to them. So they want to have that traditional, right, crusader, epic based, you know, trad cath lifestyle, you know, with the wife at home in the sundress, and then, you know, there's like 6 kids, right? That's what they want. They want to go to, and then of course they meet like a real Catholic that's just like, what the fuck? Get away from me! Like, like, what are you doing? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's just gonna be interesting to follow as they vote and the cardinals meet. I need to watch Conclave now that it's I think it's gonna come on Prime pretty soon. But yeah, I need to watch Conclave. Yeah, man. Or I can watch like Angels and Demons, like the the Tom Hanks movies now. Yeah. I'm gonna read real quick. From the Vatican, at least. So, because like, it's actually I'm quite surprised that like a lot of people didn't know who he was when I was saying like, oh, the Pope died, and they're like, who? And I'm like, the Pope, like, I'm like the Pope. Anyway, I'm reading from the Vatican's like biography page for Pope Francis. So yeah, this is just a little rundown if you're not too familiar with his backstory, and it's pretty interesting actually. Like, he has a very yeah, as we'll see here, because it's from Argentina, so we'll read here. So this is from the Vatican biography page. The first Pope of the Americas, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, hails from Argentina. The 76-year-old Jesuit Archbishop of Buenos Aires is a prominent figure throughout the continent, yet remains a simple pastor who is deeply loved by his diocese, throughout which he has traveled extensively on the underground and by bus during the 15 years of his episcopal ministry. Quote, my people are poor and I am one of them, end quote, he has said more than once, explaining his decision to live in an apartment and cook his own supper. He has always advised his priests to show mercy and apostolic courage and to keep their doors open to everyone. The worst thing that could happen to the church, he has said on various occasions, is, quote, is what de Lubac called spiritual worldliness, end quote, which means, quote, being self-centered, end quote. And when he speaks of social justice, he calls people first of all to pick up the catechism, to rediscover the 10 Commandments and the Beatitudes. His project is simple. If you follow Christ, you understand that, quote, trampling upon a person's dignity is a serious sin, end quote. Despite his reserved character, his official biography consists of only a few lines, at least until his appointment as Archbishop of Buenos Aires. He became a reference point because of the strong stances he took during the dramatic financial crisis that overwhelmed the country in 2001. He was born in Buenos Aires on December 17, 1936, the son of Italian immigrants. His father, Mario, was an accountant employed by the railways, and his mother, Regina Sivori, was a committed wife dedicated to raising their 5 children. He graduated as a chemical technician, then chose the path of the priesthood, entering the diocesan seminary of Villa Devoto. On March 11, 1958, he entered the Novitiate of the Society of Jesus. He completed his studies of the humanities in Chile and returned to Argentina in 1963 to graduate with a degree in philosophy from the Colegio de San Jose in San Miguel. From 1964 to 1965, he taught literature and psychology at Immaculate Conception College in Santa Fe, and in 1966, he taught the same subject at the Colegio de Salvador in Buenos Aires. From 1967 to 1970, he studied theology and obtained a degree from the Colegio de San Jose. On December 19, 1969, he was ordained a priest by Archbishop Ramon Jose Castellano. He continued his training between 1970 and 1971 at the University of Alcalá de Henares, Spain. On April 22, 1973, made his final profession with the Jesuits back in Argentina. He was novice master at Villa Barilari San Miguel, a professor at the Faculty of Theology of San Miguel, consultor to the province of the Society of Jesus, and also rector of the Colegio Maximo of the Faculty of Philosophy and Theology. On July 31st, 1973, he was appointed provincial of the Jesuits in Argentina, an office he held for 6 years. He then resumed his work in the university sector from 1980 to 1986, served once again as rector of the Colegio de San Jose, as well as parish priest, again in San Miguel. In March 1968, he went to Germany to finish his doctoral thesis. His superiors then sent him to the Colegio del Salvador in Buenos Aires, and next to the Jesuit church in the city of Cordoba, as spiritual director and confessor. It was Cardinal Antonio Quarancino, Archbishop of Buenos Aires, who wanted him as a close collaborator. So on May 20th, 1992, Pope John Paul II appointed him titular bishop of Auca and auxiliary of Buenos Aires. In May 27th, he received episcopal ordination from the cardinal in the cathedral. He chose his episcopal motto, Miserando atque eligendo. Let me actually translate what that means. So that means having mercy and choosing, or by having mercy by choosing. So the quote, Miserando atque eligendo, by having mercy by choosing him. So that's what it means. Okay. Right, and that was his coat of arms, inserted the IHS, the symbol of the Society of Jesus. He gave his first interview as a bishop to a parish newsletter, Estrelita de Belém. He was immediately appointed Episcopal Vicar of the Flores district, and on December 21st, 1993, was also entrusted with the office of Vicar General of the Archdiocese. Thus it came as no surprise when, June 3rd, 1997, he was raised to the dignity of Coadjutor Archbishop of Buenos Aires. Not even 9 months had passed when, upon the death of Cardinal Quarancino, he succeeded him on February 28, 1998, as Archbishop, Primate of Argentina, and Ordinary of the Eastern Rite faithful in Argentina, who have no ordinary of their own right. 3 years later, at the Consistory of February 21st, 2001, John Paul II created him cardinal, assigning him the title of San Roberto Bellarmino. He asked the faith not to come to Rome to celebrate his creation as cardinal, but rather to donate to the poor what they would have spent on the journey. As Grand Chancellor of the Catholic University of Argentina, he is the author of the books Meditaciones para Religiosos, which is 1982, Reflexiones sobre la vida apostólica, 1992, and Reflexiones de Esperanza, 1992. In October 2001, he was appointed General Relator to the 10th Ordinary General Assembly of the Synod of Bishops on the Episcopal Ministry. This task was entrusted to him at the last minute to replace Cardinal Edward Michael Egan, Archbishop of New York, who was obliged to stay in his homeland because of the terrorist attacks of September 11th. At the Synod, he placed particular emphasis on, quote, the prophetic mission of the bishop, end quote, his being a, quote, prophet of justice, end quote, his duty to, quote, preach ceaselessly, end quote, the social doctrine of the church, and also, quote, to express an authentic judgment in matters of faith and morals, end quote. All the while, Cardinal Bergoglio was becoming even more popular in Latin America. Despite this, he never relaxed his sober approach or his strict lifestyle, which some have defined as almost ascetic. I hope I'm saying that right. In his spirit of poverty, he declined to be appointed as president of the Argentine Bishops' Conference in 2002, but 3 years later he was elected, and then in 2008 reconfirmed for a further 3-year mandate. Meanwhile, in 2005, he took part in the conclave in which Pope Benedict XVI was elected. As Archbishop of Buenos Aires, a diocese with more than 3 million inhabitants, he conceived of a missionary project based on communion and evangelization. He had 4 main goals: open and brotherly communities, and informed laity played a lead role. Evangelization efforts addressed to every inhabitant of the city, and assistance to the poor and the sick. He aimed to re-evangelize Buenos Aires, quote, taking into account those who live there, its structure, and its history. He asked priests and lay people to work together. In September 2009, he launched the Solidarity Campaign for the bicentenary of the independence of the country. 200 charitable agencies are to be set up by 2016, and on a continental scale, he expected much from the impact of the message of the Aparecida conference in 2007, to the point of describing it as the, quote, Evangelii Nuntiandi of Latin America, end quote. Until the beginning of the recent sede vacante, he was a member of the Congregation for Divine Worship and Discipline of the Sacraments, the Congregation for the Clergy, the Congregations for Institutes of Consecrated Life, and Societies of Apostolic Life, the Pontifical Council for the Family, and the Pontifical Commission for Latin America. And then, he was elected Supreme Pontiff on March 13th, 2003. So, wow, he's just like a little over 12 years, like last month, March. I know it was a lot to read, but I definitely wanted to get to give you all a sense of his achievements and his work, and his contributions, especially in Latin America, in terms of poverty. So again, that's just a little opener that I wanted to get onto, and it's a pretty significant event, and a lot of people are worried about what the next pope would look like. Again, I'm not really committed, like invested per se, because like it's the Pope, he's basically like the Roman Emperor. It's kind of weird, like just to read into the history of the church, because that's what the church was, right? Like the Western Roman Empire sort of collapsed and dissolved itself, but the church was still hanging around. Like what? And then you have these warlords and these barbarians who don't really know how to manage affairs, so it's like they kind of come to this agreement of, okay, well, we're going to have these warlords who later become the nobility. They handle affairs of state, war and such, and then of course you have the church, the clergy, who handle more of the research and because like a lot of those churches, they did do science. You could say science. It's kind of weird. But they were sort of like the keeper of knowledge, right? And of course they read Latin. So I don't necessarily care per se. I'm not invested, but it is an important, influential position. So, it's interesting to see what will come out of it, especially now in a time of rising fascism and right-wing sentiments. So, so it's it's interesting. It's significant. It's the Pope. Okay, because I had a text message, so that's why I had to pause it. So I was talking about the Pope, or the Catholic Church, and so this medieval age where you have the nobility, who are these warriors who handle war and state, the security, right? And then you have the clergy who handle knowledge and who handle not even really handle it. They're controlling it, right? They don't want it to fall into the wrong hands, and then, they're weaponizing it to sort of control the peasant population who are the farmers, right? Because you have to have this like structure and control, because if one thing falls or the other, then there's chaos, as we will see right later on when you have the Protestant Reformations and then the 30 Years' War. Oh boy. And then look at all the Protestants and evangelicals today. It's a fucking mess. Like, Jesus. I like to like rip on like my Protestant friends or like my Baptist friends. Sometimes as a Catholic, I'm like, hey, why don't you, there's the talk about like the Protestant work ethic, where it's like you're basically working yourself into an early grave, versus the Catholic work ethic, where you have like siestas and like people like, drink wine at work or something like or something. Yeah. Anyway, it's just, again, that's the thing. It's like a cultural thing, if anything. It's not that I'm like super religious, but it's a cultural thing, It's like, oh man, like, again, that's why being like a Catholic convert is like weird. It's like, why? Like, you're born to this shit. Like the Sopranos, you're born to this shit. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. I just wanted to like kind of open things lightly and offer my point of view on this recent event, because it's significant. It's the Pope, man. Like, it's, yeah. And yeah, rest in peace to him. That's all I'll say. Yeah. Anyway, so now I'm gonna get on to more relevant issues, more political domestic issues. And, this episode, because I don't really feel like recording like a 5-hour, 6-hour episode, I'm going to highlight mainly on domestic issues, because there's a lot to discuss. And boy, oh boy, they're really pushing the limits. They're really trying to see how much they can get away with. It's shocking. Yeah, it's quite shocking. I try not to be surprised by anything. It's certainly something that is expected, right? Like, yeah, of course they would try to, push things as far as they can go. But man, like, what the fuck? What are they doing? So anyway, I wanted to highlight specifically on these detentions and these, well, first, there's like a political aspect to it, the political dissent aspect, and then also just straight up ethnic cleansing. So first, I will highlight on a significant, event, right, with the detention of Mahmoud Khalil. Yeah, it's interesting to follow this event, because they tried to arrest him at first, they did arrest him at first, and then they said his visa was revoked, and then they said he doesn't have a visa, he has a green card, and they're like, oh, well, that's revoked too, and it's just like, what? Like, they're just making shit up on the fly. And he went to Colombia, and he was a student activist there. So they're trying to say that he is a terrorist organizer. He's organizing terrorist activities against the United States, and it's just whatever bullshit excuse they want to make so they can just disappear this guy who has a wife, an American wife, who is expecting a child. It's, yeah. I mean, these people are fucking evil, man. And, all this for Israel is ridiculous, man. Like, it's just, like, what are we doing? This is why I get upset at liberals, too. It's like, hey, man, like, y'all didn't exactly help out with this, and you're not really talking about it. Like, I was talking to somebody earlier, a relative, and they were, trying to, like, post about immigrants, oh, no human being is illegal. And then it's just like, hey, like, you haven't said anything about Palestine, but you're going to talk now about Trump, and you're going to talk now about immigration issues, and then they're trying to act like, oh no, these are two separate issues. It's irrelevant. Palestine isn't really well, then look at it now. Look at the intersection now of the Palestinian issue, the issue of the genocide that's happening, anti-colonial, anti-imperial sentiments, and then now you have immigrants being detained by ICE, especially now political dissidents. And of course, you're not going to hear liberals talk about Mahmoud Khalil. It's ridiculous. Yeah, man. It's all connected. All of this is connected. Okay, who do you think trains ICE? Like, it's again, they're trying to act like it's not, like, don't try to, don't try to mix things up, that don't belong in. And look, there's a direct link. There's a direct link to it, but they don't want to have that reflection on it. And then, of course, there's deeper signals because they're doing this now. Because now Trump is like talking about deporting Americans, like American citizens. Like, he's just saying the homegrowns. You got to get the homegrowns next. It's like, hello, man. Like, why aren't we, doing something? Like, it's just crazy. Like, he says, "Oh, I'm gonna send Americans to death camps," and then you hear certain people in denial, like, "Well, he can't. That's against the law. He can't do it." And then, of course, they had like the other individual, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, where the Supreme Court said, "Hey, you have to return him. Like, this is illegal what you just did." Oh, no, but you see, the Supreme Court can't dictate foreign policy. Like, that's just what they're going to do. They don't give a fuck. Like, anyway, so I had here this opinion piece from Mahmoud Khalil, reading it from the Washington Post. And, they just made a recent decision. Again, I can't really follow it too much. But essentially, they have ruled, I guess, that they can deport him. So I don't know what they're going to do now. It's just crazy. So anyway, with Mahmoud Khalil, this opinion piece from Washington Post, and his title here, "What Does My Detention by ICE Say About America?" And the subtitle, "A democracy for some is no democracy at all." So this is by Mahmoud Khalil, a recent Palestinian graduate of Columbia University who's currently detained. I think he's in Louisiana. Yeah, it's crazy. So here, "It's 3 a.m. as I lie sleepless on a bunk bed in Jena, Louisiana." Okay, that's where he is. "Far from my wife, Noor, who will give birth to our baby in 2 weeks." I can't imagine that, man. They just ripped apart this family. It's just unbelievable, man. "The sound of rain hitting the metal roof masked the snoring of 70 men tossing and turning on hard mats in this detention facility run by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Which ones are dreaming about reuniting with their families? Which ones are having nightmares about becoming the Trump administration's next, quote, administrative error? Last Friday, I sat in a courtroom as an immigration judge determined that the government could deport me despite my status as a legal permanent resident, and despite that the government's claims against me were baseless. Much of its evidence lifted directly from sensationalized tabloids. The decision won't result in immediate deportation. Aspects of my case are pending in other courts. Earlier that day, I sifted through letters from supporters. 2 postage stamps displayed the American flag, one stating liberty forever, the other proclaiming justice forever. The irony is stunning, especially regarding what I've learned about how the administration exploits immigration laws to enforce its repressive agenda. I think that the breakneck speed with which my case was heard and decided, running roughshod over due process. On the flip side, I think about those I am locked up with, many of whom have been languishing for months or years waiting for their due process. During Friday's hearing, the government asserted on behalf of Secretary of State Marco Rubio that my belief statements and associations compromise its, quote, compelling, end quote, foreign policy interests. Like the thousands of students that I advocated with at Columbia, including Muslim, Jewish, and Christian friends, I believe in the innate equality of all human beings. I believe in human dignity. I believe in the right of my people to look at the blue sky and not fear an impending missile. Why should protesting Israel's indiscriminate killing of thousands of innocent Palestinians result in the erosion of my constitutional rights? My lawyers have mentioned that a case called Endo might bear on my own. Days later, in my research at a law library, I uncovered the human story behind the legal abstraction Mitsuye Endo, a Japanese-American woman incarcerated during World War II. Challenged her captors and brought her case to the Supreme Court. Her victory helped secure the release of thousands of others. The incarceration of 70,000 American citizens of Japanese descent is a reminder that rhetoric of justice and freedom obscures the reality that, all too often, America has been a democracy of convenience. Rights are granted to those who align with power. For the poor, for the people of color, for those who resist injustice, rights are but words written on water. The right to free speech when it comes to Palestine has always been exceptionally weak. Even so, the crackdown on universities and students reveals just how afraid the White House is of the idea of Palestine's freedom entering the mainstream. Why else would Trump officials not only attempt to deport me, but also intentionally mislead the public about who I am and what I stand for? I pick up my copy of Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which I need to read also. I feel ashamed to compare my conditions in ICE detention to Nazi concentration camps. Yet, some aspects of Frankl's experience resonate, not knowing what fate awaits me, seeing resignation and defeat in my fellow detainees. Frankl wrote from the lens of a psychologist. I wonder whether Hussam Abu Safia, a renowned hospital director who was abducted by Israel occupying forces on December 27th, and according to his lawyer from the Al-Mazin Center for Human Rights, has endured beatings, electrical shocks, and solitary confinement, will write about his ordeal from a medical perspective. It's almost 4 a.m., thunder crashes. A few rows away, one man hugs a bottle of hot water in his sock for warmth. His prayer mat serves as a blanket, and his head rests on his shoes. A detainee who was praying all night finally lies down. He was caught crossing the border with his pregnant wife and has never seen his baby, now 9 months old. I try to convince myself that this will not be my fate, though Friday's ruling makes that possibility more real than I want to admit. I write this letter as the sun rises, hoping that the suspension of my rights will raise alarm bells that yours are already in jeopardy. I hope it will inspire your outrage that the most basic human instinct to protest shameless massacre is being repressed by obscure laws, racist propaganda, and a state terrified of an awakened public. I hope this writing will startle you into understanding that a democracy for some, a democracy of convenience, is no democracy at all. I hope it will shake you into acting before it is too late. So that is his piece there. And it's a stark reminder to look at, somebody writing in detention, okay? And we know full well why this is happening. This is a very explicit act of political dissent and repression. Yeah. And, the government just wants to disappear people and just like arbitrarily throw them in prison over their views. It's ridiculous, frankly. And they're just openly lying. They're openly lying. They're calling him a terrorist and a Hamas supporter. It's like, that's not, no, but they don't care. They don't give a shit. There's no reasoning with them. Again, I don't really watch say those Jubilee videos. Those Jubilee videos where they're like, oh, it's, they had the Sam Cedar video, so it's one liberal against 20 MAGA conservatives, and it's like, it's all a spectacle. That's all it is. Nothing is being produced here. And again, you might think, oh, well, we're going to have this epic-based debate, and then this conservative is going to be made to look a fool. They don't give a shit about that. There's no, again, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? They're literally they're too entrenched that no amount of rhetoric or debate tactics or trying to one up somebody, it's not gonna work. They don't care, man. And again, some conservatives are gonna watch that and be like, yeah, fuck yeah, that's awesome. Again, man. And as we'll see here, there's another student from Tufts University who wrote an op-ed, and this is a student from Turkey, and she was just snatched off the street. And then they denied her bond just recently. So I'm going to read this, another one from NBC. So judge denies bond to Tufts University student grabbed off street by ICE. Lawyers for Rumisa Öztürk, a doctoral student from Turkey, said her detentions amount to an attack on free speech. Again, she didn't even organize any protests at all. She just wrote an op-ed, and then they're snatching people and throwing her away. There's so many violations, but again, this is happening to immigrants who are speaking about Palestine and Israel, and that's why you see a lot of liberals, again, as I pointed out, that aren't really going to touch on this. They're just not going to, because it goes against the grain, because they're just so stuck on Palestine and in support of Israel. Anyway, so let me read here from NBC. So an immigration judge has denied bond to Rumisa Öztürk. Her lawyer said Thursday, The latest developments in the case of the Tufts University student from Turkey, whose arrest on a Massachusetts sidewalk was captured in a viral video. Ozturk, 30, was on her way to meet friends to break the Ramadan fast on March 25th when she was detained by plainclothes immigration agents in Somerville, a Boston suburb. She was then taken to an immigration detention center in Louisiana. They just snatch people and then put them in Louisiana. Oh my God, it's just so fucking evil, man. And she's a doctoral student. Her lawyers have asked a federal judge in Vermont to order her release as the immigration case plays out. They argue that Ozturk's student visa was revoked in retaliation for an op-ed she co-wrote for her student newspaper about the war in Gaza. Quote, Ms. Ozturk has committed no crime and DHS has provided zero evidence in their case against her. Masha Khan Babai, one of Ozturk's attorneys, said Thursday in a statement. In court papers filed in Vermont District Court late Wednesday, Ozturk's lawyers said that the immigration judge in Louisiana denied the request for bond after Department of Homeland Security attorneys argued she was a flight risk. It's just fucking crazy. What do you... Oh my God, these people are so fucked up, man. She co-wrote an op-ed piece, and now suddenly she's a terrorist. It's fucking crazy. These assholes are really gonna go for it, man. Don't sleep on them, man. Anyway, the court papers say that the government attorneys presented one document, a one-paragraph State Department memo revoking her visa to support their opposition to the bond. That's it. I think this judge is in on it too. There's a reason they took her to Louisiana. This judge, I think I've read that is very specifically captured by the MAGA agenda. So the memo says that DHS and ICE determined that Ozturk, quote, had been involved in associations that may undermine U.S. foreign policy by creating hostile environment for Jewish students and indicating support for designated terrorist organization, including co-authoring an op-ed that found common cause with an organization that was later temporarily banned from campus, end quote. This is just like, imagine that, you just write a paper for a university and then suddenly, Secret Service, ICE, fucking FBI agents, raid your home. Again, the fact that they're saying that, this one little, this 30-year-old, student is undermining U.S. foreign policy. What the fuck? Just one article. Again, the fact that they're doing stuff like this shows you that they're actually afraid. So in a way, it's sort of you should take this, obviously, and you should be concerned, but then you should also consider they wouldn't be doing this if they weren't scared. Okay? That they're just going to randomly attack some random student who wrote an article, an opinion piece. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. It's crazy. So Khan Babai said the government's treatment of Ozturk amounted to an attack on free speech. Quote, the court yesterday relied on a previously submitted State Department memo that points to nothing that Ms. Ozturk said or did other than her 2024 school newspaper op-ed to falsely claim she is a danger to her community, she said. This attack on free speech is despicable, but we won't be deterred, end quote. Crazy. A threat to the community. You write one little article, threat to the community. You're a flight risk. Man. The opinion essay that Ozturk co-wrote in the Tufts student newspaper criticized the university's response to demands that it, quote, acknowledge the Palestinian genocide and, quote, divest from companies with direct or indirect ties to Israel, end quote. A State Department spokesperson said it does not comment on, quote, ongoing or pending litigation, end quote. A senior DHS official said that, quote, being granted a visa to live and study in the U.S. is a privilege, not a right, end quote. Continuing, quote, the State Department makes specific determinations about visa revocations when an individual poses a threat to national security, the official added. A DHS spokesperson previously said in a statement that investigations found Ozturk, quote, engaged in activities in support of Hamas, a foreign terrorist organization that relishes the killing of Americans, end quote. The spokesperson added, quote, glorifying and supporting terrorists who kill Americans is ground for visa issuance to be terminated. This is common sense security. A Justice Department spokesperson declined to comment. It's crazy, man. I think there's going to be this sort of I'm just noticing, at least with the different departments. So like the State Department, obviously they're all gung-ho, they're all MAGA, right? And of course, with the Justice Department, of course, the Attorney General Pam Bondi, right? She just like she made a video. She's made a couple comments, right, about like Luigi Mangione, right? They're gonna try to get the death sentence on that. And then they also said about like some guy who vandalized a Tesla dealership, like, we're giving him 20 years. Like, you're a terrorist. We will find you. Like, it's just crazy. But I think with like the State Department, because there's like the secretaries and right the main officials, but then there's the underlings. And so it'd be interesting to see, like, I think with like the State Department specifically, especially those underlings, the staffers, they're certainly like, yeah, they're committed, right? They're they're in it. They're committed. But then with the Justice Department, because it's an institution, right? The Justice Department, I think that like there's plenty who probably do like Trump, but there's probably another like portion of the staffer, like the staff, that like they're just careerists, and they're only focused on justice, right? There probably many of them lawyers. It must be jarring to be in this situation where it's like you have to manage like, oh, here's what the law tells me that I can do, and then here's the administration that wants to break every law it can to further its ends. And of course, as we see here, right, they just want to say, oh, well, she's a terrorist. She won one article and she loves Hamas, so yeah, that's just something that I wanted to look at. But yeah, the disappearance of this student for writing an op-ed piece, it's like she's a terrorist. She's a threat to foreign policy aims. Like, what? It's like you're the fucking United States and you're worried about like a 30-year-old student, doctoral like student. Unbelievable. So that was like one significant disappearance that happened here, at least, because we had like recent like drama about this issue with the disappearance of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from Maryland. And this is such a mess up because they said at first, oh, well, it was a mistake, and then now like they admitted that it was a mistake, that he wasn't supposed to be deported, that he has no ties, that he has no criminal record. Okay, this is a working man, a father, and yeah, I mean, they want to claim that he's part of MS-13, even though they said that he's not a criminal, he has no crime, that he was mistakenly deported. Now they want to say that he is part of MS-13, and then disappearing into this death camp in El Salvador. Unbelievable, man. It's just crazy. So I'm going to read from NBC now. And they had the recent Senator Chris Van Hollen, who met with him and actually confirmed that he's still alive. But then, of course, you have the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, who, like, God, this guy's a piece of shit. Like, he was in the Oval Office and he's like, wow, what do you want me to do? I can't just return a terrorist. He's not a terrorist. He's literally not a terrorist, and they keep calling him one. They keep calling him a criminal, MS-13, gang member. Like, none of that's true, but they're just doing it. They don't give a shit. Anybody who has like a tattoo is MS-13, which is crazy because I've been thinking about saving up to get a tattoo, but now it's like, should I? Because if I get arrested or I mean, I don't even do any crime, but like if I get pulled over and then some cop thinks, oh, are you a citizen? Oh, but you have a tattoo. Well, like, that's like shit that I'm going to have to worry about, man. It's crazy. So here's some NBC News. And they're just talking now about his detention and this like legal issue now. This is kind of a bit of a constitutional crisis happening as a result of this, because the Supreme Court ruled that, yeah, they ruled unanimously. Like, that's a big deal that they did that. They ruled that he must be returned, and the Trump administration doesn't want to return him. And this should be a much bigger issue. I mean, there's, of course, a lot of people talking about this, but like, I feel like it should be like, I feel like, again, the fact that this one senator, Chris Van Hollen, Okay, and not like the whole Democratic establishment being like, hey, like, this is a real issue. Like, we gotta, get on this. It's, yeah. Anyway, so Ray from NBC News, Kilmar Abrego Garcia was living in Maryland with his wife and 3 children when he was deported to El Salvador, thrusting his case into the center of a pivotal legal battle. The Trump administration has accused him of being a member of the Salvadorian MS-13 gang and used that in its justifications for deporting him to his home country, despite a judge's order from 2019 barring him from being sent there. The father, who had lived in Maryland for 13 years, is now being held in a notorious megaprison. The administration has called his incarceration there an administrative error. His wife and attorney deny the accusations against him and have been fighting for his return. They say he is a loving father and husband. He has never been charged with or convicted of a crime in the United States, records show. So again, not just convicted, never been charged, okay? And they try to like dig as much as they could, and all they could find was a file that was reported by the wife. They had a rough patch in the marriage, and and again, like, marriages can get messy. I mean, that's just a fact of it, but it seems to have been like worked out. Like, they went to couples therapy and they worked things out. So like, I mean, again, like, she's up there, like, she's really calling for his return. So it's like, sure, maybe they had like a rough patch, but then they worked things out, and it's clear that she still loves him. And like what? Like, it's just crazy. Like, the one thing that they could try to get, and like, that's all they could get. And again, this administration is no stranger to abusive husbands, right, and divorced dads, right? So like what are they trying to accomplish anyway? Again, they don't give a shit. They just wanted to deport him, and now they're gonna make every excuse possible. They called it an administrative error, but also at the same time, he's MS-13 and a terrorist. Anyway, so the legal fight over his return is ongoing. A federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to, quote, facilitate Abrego Garcia's release, an order affirmed by the Supreme Court, and to provide evidence of the actions it has taken to get him back. The administration has since doubled down on its accusations that Abrego Garcia was a gang member, and has said that because he is now in El Salvador, it does not have the authority to bring him back. After weeks of outcry and no trace of Abrego Garcia, he was temporarily released from prison on April 17th to meet with Senator Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat from Maryland. Abrego Garcia was shown in a photo wearing a button-down short sleeve shirt and cap, sitting at a table with the senator. It is unclear what the two discussed, but Van Hollen said he called Abrego Garcia's wife to pass along his message of love. Yeah, man, it's just crazy, man. Families being torn apart over this. And again, that's like, it doesn't matter to these MAGA motherfuckers. They don't care. They don't care that the economy is falling apart because of tariffs, right? And then we're going to attack all the immigrants, and nobody's going to pick the fruit in the fields. Like, they don't give a shit. Because we're bringing America back, and we're gonna put the migrants in gas chambers. Let's go, USA. Like, that's all they care about. They don't give a shit about all the damage that this is gonna cause, all the lives destroyed. They don't care. They don't give a shit. They're assholes. My God. I don't give a shit if somebody's in this country illegally. Okay, I don't care. Okay. And they don't want to point and hyperfixate on like these like rare these slim cases of like crime that happen. Very isolated instances, of course, that should be charged and should be of course, yeah, what do you think? But like still like yeah, one violent immigrant, and like how many how many mass shootings have we had? And like, of course, it's thoughts and prayers, right? We just had a mass shooting in Florida, Florida State University, and Trump was just like, well, these things happen. It's sad, but these things happen, right? Like, again, it's just ridiculous, man. They had like the Laken Riley Act, right? It's just crazy. And they don't even care about these victims, right? They don't care at all. They just use them for their own political aims, for their own agenda. Like, I'm reminded now, because there was, I don't know, this is more like a Twitter drama issue, but like there was this recent killing of a teenager in Texas. I think it was Frisco, Texas, by the name of Austin Metcalf, or Metcalf, I don't remember. But what happened was, I guess there was a scuffle, and there was a black teen that he was scuffling with, and then he got stabbed in the heart and died. And again, I don't really want to comment too much on it, because again, it's a really messed up situation. Of course, you know, a kid that young dying in like a fight over something probably very stupid, but you know, it's just, you know, sad sometimes. But now, of course, you have these like right-wing idiots online, these Nazis, trying to take advantage of that and being like, oh, white lives matter, they're coming for us, they're coming for our children. And then like you have the father being like, hey, you need to stop using the death of my son to further your agenda. And they're like, that's your white guilt. You're feeling you're being weak right now. You're being a little bitch right now. Like like they don't give a shit. So they want to talk about immigrants coming into this country and all the white women, right? They really want to focus whenever it's a white woman that dies. Oh, our women, they're being raped and murdered, but then they don't give a fuck. They don't fucking care. Anyway, it's just ridiculous. But this is going to hurt us more than it's going to hurt. I mean, a lot of immigrants are going to be hurt by this, but it's going to hurt us even more. You know, like there was like an ad that came out. I think it was either Louisiana or Georgia, where it's like, oh, come work May to August, and you know, we'll pick blueberries for $11 an hour. I'm like, yeah, totally, man. I'm like, what the fuck? Oh my god. And of course, you know, they're also cutting FDA, probably even USDA regulations. It's just, this is gonna be a mess. Anyway, let me get back onto this article. So let me see here. Yeah, so quote, and this is from Van Hollen. Quote, his conversation with me was the first communication he had with anybody outside of prison since he was abducted, Van Hollen said. Quote, he said he felt very sad about being in a prison because he has not committed a crime, end quote. Van Hollen told reporters that Abrego Garcia has, quote, experienced trauma and framed his deportation as, quote, an illegal abduction. After the meeting, Salvador President Nayib Bukele said that the man will remain in prison, quote, now that he's been confirmed healthy, end quote. Again, hasn't committed a crime, and then you got this guy, this fucking asshole. He's a Far Cry villain. Straight up. He's like the crypto, like, police state. Like, this is so, like it's weird. And he's just posting online, just like, yeah, he's not coming back. We're keeping him. Like he's trolling us. Like this is just a joke to them. That's all. They don't give a shit, right? So Bukele, who has championed his country's use of mass incarceration, said in a meeting with President Donald Trump at the White House that he would not release Abrego Garcia. Again, and it's so obvious that this is an innocent person, and they don't care, and they're calling him a terrorist and a gang member. They're holding him, one, out of spite because they don't want to be told what to do, but then also because he's probably seen a lot of shit inside. It's called CECOT or whatever. Like, they didn't let the senator in. He's a fucking senator, and they didn't let him in. They let in a whole bunch of other, like, conservative congressmen and influencers. Like, there's so many of them who have been posting pictures of these prisoners, and yeah, probably plenty of them are MS-13. Okay, it is a violent gang. But like some of these pictures, like, it's very much like humiliation and like sort of like the trophy like picture, like selfies where they're like smiling, and then you have like rows of bunk beds of like these emaciated prison inmates. It's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. Like, there's one picture, and I even posted it on social media, where this man who's tatted up, yeah, and like he literally has like MS on his face, on his tattoo. Face tattoo. So like, okay, he's probably MS-13, most likely. But like, you can see like the visible signs of starvation. Like, his skin is already sagging, so he's losing like body mass, and it's just like this is inhumane. You can't do this. I don't care. Like, I don't care if it's fucking Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy. This is inhumane. You can't do this. Again, man, like, this is like a thing with conservatives. I don't know why, like, they treat life like Dexter sometimes, or some sort of like movie where it's like, I only kill the bad guys. It's like they want to, like, they have this like urge to like torture and harm people, but then it's like, oh, I'm only going to do it to bad people. I'm only going to do it to pedophiles. Yeah, I'm going to hunt down a pedophile and then kick him or something. I don't know. It's like they want to do that. They want to carry out those violent urges, but then they think that if it's against another bad person, then I'm the hero. And it's like, no, dude, like, this isn't, you're not Batman. Like, what the fuck? Like, most of these superheroes, if they were around, they'd be like, what are you doing? Like, stop. Like, it's just, yeah, man. It's just humiliation. They want to have control, right? And they want to bring harm against a vulnerable person. So at the very least, they can do that to somebody who's maybe a gang member or was involved in some violent actions. Maybe. Yeah, MS-13 is pretty bad. But still, it's like, you can't do this. Anyway, because I know they're going to try to say like, oh, he's pro cartels and he's pro gang drug dealers. Like, anyway, so yeah, let me finish further now. So, as the high-stakes case continues to play out in court, here's what we know about Abrego Garcia and the case. So, right, from El Salvador to Maryland, according to court filings, Kelmar Abrego Garcia was born in July 1995 in the neighborhood of Los Nogales in El Salvador, where he helped his family run a business making pupusas, a local cuisine. He has said he and his family received death threats and were extorted by the local gang, Barrio 18. He crossed the border illegally near McAllen, Texas in March 2012 when he was 16 years old, according to a document posted on X by Attorney General Pam Bondi. From the border, Abrego Garcia made his way to Maryland to live with his brother, who is a U.S. citizen. In 2016, he met his wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sura, who is a U.S. citizen. They had a young son together, and Vasquez Sura has 2 children from a previous marriage. Abrego Garcia was a sheet metal apprentice and a member of the local union. The 2019 arrest and gang allegations. Abrego Garcia was arrested in March 2019 in a Home Depot parking lot in Hyattsville with 3 other men for loitering. His attorney said he was looking for day labor work. Police assessed that he was a gang member at the time. According to arrest documents, he had no criminal record at the time, which the documents also state. When Abrego Garcia was arrested, he had 28 grams of marijuana on him. The drugs were seized by the Hyattsville Police Department, but did not file charges. One of the men arrested that day was known to the Prince George's County Police Department as an MS-13 gang member, according to a document titled Gang Field Interview Sheet. Police interviewed the men, including Abrego Garcia. The document said he was wearing, quote, a Chicago's Bulls hat and a hoodie with rolls of money covering their eyes, ears, and mouth of the president on the bills. The officer said such clothing was indicative of the Hispanic gang culture. The officers also said they consulted with a, quote, past, proven, and reliable confidential source, end quote, who advised that Abrego Garcia was an active gang member who had the moniker Chele. His attorneys noted Abrego Garcia was not charged and said in court documents that, quote, there is no reliable evidence in the record to support that he is a member of MS-13, adding that the allegations is based on hearsay relayed by a confidential source and the clothing he was wearing. The Prince George's County Police Department said multiple members of its gang unit interviewed the 4 men after their arrest. Its detectives had, quote, reasonable suspicion based upon their training and experience, end quote, to say that the 3 men, including Abrego Garcia, quote, displayed traits associated with MS-13 gang culture, the department said. Quote, this was based on tattoos, clothing, as well as information from a source, end quote, police said. The police did not arrest any of the men, said they have not interacted with Abrego Garcia again, and have not received any new intelligence related to him. One of the detectives who interviewed the men was former officer Ivan Mendez, who was suspended in April 2019. As part of an unrelated matter, police said Mendez pleaded guilty to misconduct in office in that unrelated incident. As a result, the department proposed that Mendez's employment be terminated, which he accepted. A statement from police said Mendez was terminated from the department in December 2022. Hyattsville's officers knew there was an ongoing murder investigation in Prince George's County when they arrested the 4 individuals in the Home Depot parking lot. Police identified 2 men, one of whom was Abrego Garcia, as having been previously detained in a murder investigation, according to a Department of Homeland Security document from 2019. Abrego Garcia denied being connected to a murder investigation, documents say, and he was never charged. After Abrego Garcia was arrested, he was taken to the Prince George's County Police Department office for questioning in a homicide investigation, along with 3 other individuals. After questioning, he was turned over to ICE. The release of documents on April 16th was the fullest detailing of the circumstances around his arrest and came after weeks of pressure on administration officials to prove its contention that Abrego Garcia was a member of the MS-13 gang. The Department of Homeland Security also posted on social media that Abrego Garcia's wife had received a temporary protective order against him in 2021. Vasquez-Sura did not appear for the hearing, and the case was ultimately dismissed. She released a statement explaining what happened. Quote, after surviving domestic violence in a previous relationship, I acted out of caution after a disagreement with Kimar by seeking a civil protection order in case things escalated, end quote. Vasquez-Sura said in a statement Wednesday, quote, things did not escalate, and I decided not to follow through with the civil court process, end quote. Quote, no one is perfect and no marriage is perfect. That is not a justification for ICE's actions. ICE's action of abducting him and deporting him to a country where he was supposed to be protected from deportation, end quote, she added. The administration has also accused Abrego Garcia of being involved in human trafficking, but did not release evidence of the claim until April 18th, when the Department of Homeland Security released a report detailing a traffic stop in Tennessee in 2022, where an officer suspected Abrego Garcia of human trafficking while driving a vehicle with 8 other people. Abrego Garcia said the men were traveling for construction work according to the report. Because there was no luggage in the vehicle, the officer on the scene suspected it could be human trafficking, it said. The Tennessee Highway Patrol said in a statement that in 2022, Abrego Garcia was stopped for speeding on I-40. The agency contacted federal law enforcement, which did not detain him, the statement said. When the Highway Patrol ran his license, it discovered it was expired, and there was a note to call federal authorities because of its alleged affiliation with MS-13 following the incident in 2020, a senior Tennessee law enforcement official said. When the agency called ICE, it declined to pick him up and take him into custody. The official said he was released without charge. The interaction between Abrego Garcia and the agency was cordial, the official said, adding that Abrego said the other men in the car were traveling between construction jobs. Quote, Kilmar worked in construction and sometimes transported groups of workers between job sites, so it's entirely plausible he would have been pulled over while driving with others in the vehicle, his wife said in the statement. Quote, he was not charged with any crime or cited for any wrongdoing. Unfortunately, Kilmar is currently in prison without contact with the outside world, which means he cannot respond to the claims or defend himself. So that's quite a bit, but I think it's a good, sense of like the allegations and the details, because he had some run-ins with the law, but again, he never got charged with anything. They found him with 28 grams of weed, and they didn't charge him. And then they also pointed out that one of the officers was terminated for misconduct. So, and again, even with all that doesn't make it okay. Just to put him in a fucking death camp. Like, it's crazy what they're coming out now about this prison. And again, it's innocent until proven guilty. Okay? That's the whole basis of this country. Like, you have to go through this due process, even for immigrants. But of course, because he's not an American, he has no rights, and we can just throw them away. It's ridiculous. Unbelievable, man. And again, they're really pushing it. They're really pushing it, And there was just recent news. Actually, it wasn't as big because they kind of resolved it quickly. But there was this another man. This is how it starts, right? You have student visas, right? Political dissenters, and then laborers like this. Undocumented, because he did enter the country, they're saying, illegally, but then he had protection, he had protective status, so yeah. And it's just crazy that the attitude that they have with like so many immigrants, like, it's like, oh, they're right, there's all these violent gangs in Latin America, and then people come here trying to escape those gangs. You see, it's an invasion, they're the gangs. It's like, it's just crazy, man. Crazy. Like they said, they left because they were facing extortion from a gang. So like they had to leave. They're refugees, essentially. Man, So again, even with all those details, even if, what do you think you can like just like throw somebody in a cage and then just like that's it? And they're just using them as a prop to like humiliate and like to it's like a slave labor camp also. Like it's just crazy, man. So yeah. And of course, after this sort of meeting with Chris Van Hollen, the senator, and his comments saying that like he's very much traumatized. I mean, why wouldn't you be? Just got abducted. Now you're in this prison with real gang members and like very real like violent people. I mean, who knows how? Because like that's the thing about a prison. It's like you have the guards who control the perimeter, right? And they control certain areas, but then the actual like cell blocks and the actual like prison, right? That's where the gangs rule, or the prisoners are, and who knows how. I mean, I've never been booked. I've never been inside like a county jailhouse, so I don't know what it's like. Man, I hope that doesn't change anytime soon. I would very much like to stay out of jail. But like it's just interesting to think about like what are these prisoners like and how is life like, and because again, prison gangs, there's a real politics and real like tribalism, how do you navigate that? It's just crazy, man. Crazy. You're just minding your business, living your family life, and then now you're in a prison with like tatted up gangsters. Like what the fuck? And and then you're being tortured and starved by the guards is also, man, it's just ridiculous, man. Anyway, but I mean, now that they're saying that he has been moved to a different center, so they're still going to hold him, but he's not in the CECOT prison, the mega prison. So it's like, like they're making moves, they're feeling the pressure, so they're like, okay, so we'll put him in this, I guess like minimum security detention center. Anyway, I mean, he is Salvadorian at least, so he's in his home country, but still, like, it's just fucked up to see all this. Wow. So sad. So sad. And they're really going to try to push it. They're really going to try to see how much they can get away with. And as I was saying, there was a man in Georgia, or like he was born in Georgia, and he's like this Mayan individual. And he was arrested in Florida for entering the country illegally, supposedly. And then his mother showed up to the court with documents, and they still held him. And it almost sort of became this fiasco. I guess they had to release him eventually because it's like he is a citizen. But like that's just going to show you, especially for people of color, the issues that are going to come now, especially with travel. Like I'm just thinking about like, I mean, not that I could afford a ticket at the moment, but if I eventually save up and want to go to the Dominican Republic and see my family, I'm going to deal with issues now coming back in. And then they're also saying that like they're searching people's phones, and it's just like, oh my God, dude. Like I remember one time I came back and we were landing in New York. We were at LaGuardia, and we're walking out of the plane, and we're on the path to customs, and like this random beat cop just calls out to me, and he's like, hey, let me talk to you. I'm like, okay. And like I gave him my passport, and this guy's like actually interrogating me, like asking me like, what am I doing in America? I'm just like, I'm an American. Oh, what were you doing there? I was visiting my family. And it's just like, it's just crazy. And it's not, again, because it's not immigration, all right, not customs, okay, because that's where you get processed. Just some random NYPD beat cop just like standing around playing Candy Crush, and then just like calling out to me, and I'm just like, okay. My God. So like imagine now trying to travel, and like, yeah, I'm gonna be so anxious all the time, like where's my passport, like, oh my God. And then imagine if something did happen with my passport, and then trying to go to the embassy. Like that's gonna be a shit show also. I mean, luckily the Dominican Republic's stable, so they have good relations and such. But like, I don't know what's gonna happen, man. It's just crazy. Like I don't know. I don't feel comfortable traveling out of the country, because in coming back, there could be some issues, and then they might pull you aside and just be like, "Oh, let's check your phone. Let's look at your social media." Like, fuck you. Like, anyway. So yeah, so that's at least like the immigration issues and the potential deportations, or the detention and deportations, not only of political, dissent, and then of course you have Trump there saying, "We got to go for the homegrowns next. You got to deal with the homegrowns. I would love to see American citizens deported to El Salvador." Like, wow, just crazy, man. He's saying it out loud. It's just like, he doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit. Anyway, so now I'm going to talk on tariffs, because I've been talking about like immigration issues, but tariffs are certainly important, especially considering the instability, right? The uncertainty in the markets. So that's why you see like a lot of sellouts happening. But man, it's something else to watch, right? This is the art of the deal. The art of the deal. We're gonna put 185% tariffs on China, and and just watch the economy crash and burn. But also we're gonna put an exemption for 90 days, or I don't know what's happening. It's like, I roughly am starting to understand trade and tariff issues, and even now I'm just like, I don't fucking care. Like, I just don't. I mean, it's important, obviously, but it's just like, I already kind of have this impending sense of doom when it comes to the global economy. So, watching this play out is sort of funny, because like, they're trying to act like China is going to collapse economically overnight, and it's like, look at our stocks, look at our markets, right? And look at the potential layoffs that might come. And it's like, we want to create industry and manufacturing, we want to bring it back. And it's like, okay, man, like, are you going to build a factory overnight? And are people going to work at those factories? I'm not going to work in a steel foundry. Like, fuck off. Like, like, it's so stupid. Like, of course, I certainly recognize the importance of reshoring manufacturing. But then what's going to happen out of that is that, you're going to bring back those jobs, but then workers in America are going to demand higher wages than, say, Mexico or China or Vietnam, right? That's the whole reason why they ship those jobs abroad. So if those jobs came back, then you're going to have workers saying, okay, well, we want, I don't know what the rate is, but, they want like, say, like, they want like 50%, say, what it would be in like the 70s, right? When, they last had those jobs. So when a 50% increase from wages, and it's like, these CEOs and these billionaires are going to be like, fuck you. No, like, we're not doing that. Which is why you see a lot of push for AI and automation. So it's like, they're going to bring back the factories and the manufacturing, but it's not going to be Americans working in there, So yeah, it's like, I don't know what the plan is. It's just ridiculous to go over. There is no plan. It's just whatever sticks on the wall, whatever works. And it's just crazy that all this instability is happening. We're still in month 3. Okay, this is like, we're the 21st, right? So literally exactly 3 months since Trump has taken office. Dude, like, what is happening? So from here, CNBC, and they're just talking about the effects of tariffs, and what they're calling here, or what they're writing here, is companies are parking imports in so-called tax-free foreign trade zones. So again, like, they're trying to find loopholes to get to like sort of navigate these tariffs, and obviously, what's going to be good for their wallet is going to be worse for ours, essentially. So yeah. So we're gonna follow this here, and I'm reading from CNBC. So companies large and small are turning to special U.S. Customs approved sites to avoid, at least temporarily, the payment of new tariffs implemented by President Trump. These locations, called Foreign Trade Zones (FTZs), are bonded foreign trade zones (FTZs) and bonded warehouses are specially designated secured storage or manufacturing sites approved by U.S. Customs where freight is not subject to U.S. duties or excise taxes. Duties are only paid by the importer when the goods are transferred out of the FTZ or bonded warehouse for U.S. market consumption. Quote, a year ago, an FTZ was non-starter because of the investment a company would have to make, end quote, said Jackson Wood, a director of industry strategy at Descartes Global Trade Intelligence, which provides FTZ technology system assistance. Quote, now they are crunching the numbers to see if it makes financial sense, and for some it does, end quote, Wood said, including smaller companies that are starting to consider FTZs as tariff rates soar. There is a 90-day pause in place for most countries before new tariffs hit, though tariffs for Chinese goods are now as high as 145%. FTZs enable U.S. importers and manufacturers to store imports of finished goods for an indefinite amount of time without paying trade duties. Freight imported under bond and placed in a bonded warehouse can be stored for up to 5 years starting the day it was imported into the country. Depending on the day the freight is moved out of an FTZ or bonded warehouse, importers might be able to pay either reduced custom duties, taxes, or fees, or none at all, a strategic approach to import management also known as an inverted tariff. The deferment of duties, taxes, and fees normally applicable upon importation can significantly enhance a company's financial position by providing cost savings, operational flexibility, and improved cash flow. Jeffrey J. Tafel, president of the National Association of Foreign Trade Zones, says his organization started to see an increase in membership during the 2024 presidential election, and registrations have continued to pour in, with membership at an all-time high. Quote, with tariff changes happening so quickly, there are companies that are looking for FTZ storage space in order to defer the duties until they were able to decide how they want to proceed with the merchandise, much of which was purchased before the tariffs were known, end quote, said Tafel. Quote, anytime tariffs are in the news, we see an increase in interest in all programs that help U.S. companies mitigate the impact. Tafel said there is also increased interest regarding FTZ grantees, which are authorized by the Foreign Trade Zones Board to establish, operate, and maintain a foreign trade zone, with inquiries up as much as 2 to 4 times what is typical. FTZs were created by Congress in the 1930s to incentivize domestic investment in the U.S., the Foreign Trade Zone program employs more than 550,000 American workers across all 50 states and Puerto Rico, and in virtually every industry sector. Companies can choose to not ship goods at all, and recent data out of Asia shows a steep decline in manufacturing orders and freight vessel sailing. Bringing the goods in and using duty-free zones is the other option. Quote, recent tariff changes have made FTZs more appealing as other duty reductions or recovery options like duty drawback are not eligible for the new tariffs, end quote, said Chelsea Pavona Gardner, a Maersk spokeswoman for North America. Quote, as a result, companies that previously dismissed FTZs are now considering them as a viable strategy, she said. Quote, we're at the point where we have a combination of clients waiting the next 30 days to see what happens, end quote, said Janet Labuda, head of customs and trade issues at Maersk. Quote, we have others taking product and moving into bonded warehouses for 30 days or so to see if any of this blows over and then extract it out of the duties being charged that day, end quote, she added. Setting up an FTZ can be costly, with charges for professional services to navigate the initial process and approval of the zone usage, as well as trained staff and dedicated IT systems to manage the zone once operational. According to Gardner, using an FTZ depends more on the scale of a company's import activities rather than the industry itself, but the primary users of FTZs in the past have been consumer goods and retail, automotive, aerospace, and electronics. In addition to warehouse storage, manufacturing plants or portions of plants can become an FTZ in cases where a company's components have a higher tariff than the finished good. Once the finished good is released from the FTZ, the company pays a lower tariff. There is also an option for companies to have customs approve the scrap of any leftover material not used in the manufacturing process, which would not be subjected to duty. This exemption can also include exporting the product to another country. John DeWart, president of Redwood Logistics Mexico, said his company has been fielding many prospects and requests for FTZ services. While the Trump administration has said it is in talks with 75 countries for trade deals since announcing new tariffs, DeWart said the surge in FTZ interest is a sign that importers are worried about how long the trade war could last. Quote, it seems customers are looking for a solution in case the tariffs stick long term, he said. Right. So that is the, that is the tariffs, and that is the what they call it, the free trade zones, and sort of the instability and uncertainty just the economy and many companies, global trade system is reacting to it. Again, this isn't exactly my field of expertise, trade and economics, and that sort of policy decisions to be made. But again, what I do understand is that America, we export mainly raw materials and we import those finished goods. So that's why an iPhone, doesn't cost like $50,000 or something, because all those labor costs were overseas, which are essentially paid pennies on the dollar compared to what we earn here. That's why we have, again, it's just so funny, like they were talking about the tariffs, and it's like, you don't need an iPad and you don't need designer shoes. You want those things. America isn't about cheap consumption. It's like, what? Come again? Oh my God, dude. It's a treat the right nation, okay? And then we're going to take away the treats. What do you think is going to happen? Oh my God. So stupid. And then, of course, Trump is like, look at this economic disaster I inherited. And it's like, it's all you. Like, it's all you, dude. Oh my God. That's what he's going to say. He's going to be like, I inherited this economic mess from Biden. It's like, dude, like, you've been in charge. Anyway. Again, not that I would get through. But yeah, we have at least here, because the world is obviously responding to this, because, the United States is, the big, again, we're like a piggy, right? Like, we're like this big piggy that has been, laying around, and we're like, we need more slop. Give me more slop, and then the rest of the world just gives us slop. Just whatever, here, slop. And then now it's like, okay, now I'm going to charge you for the slop. And it's like, what? Well, not even them. It's like, because, how do I say it? Because we pay those imports. That's what's going to cause those, increased, prices, consumer prices. That's what they're worried about. Yeah, it's essentially a sales tax, what tariffs are. It's a tax, but we pay it. So it's like, oh, no, I'm gonna put tariffs on this slop. And it's like, why? Like, we're just giving it to you because China, it's just crazy, man. Oh my God. Yeah. And reading here from Al Jazeera about China's reaction to this and their response to the world, not just to the US, but to the world. Because again, this is going to see a major shift in the sort of economic dominance, the trade dominance. And again, this has always been China's history. China's all about trade. So yeah, this is we're really going to see it, kick off now, because the U.S., nobody's really buying what the U.S. is selling. Again, he wants to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., and it's like, what are we going to manufacture? Like, what? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And who's going to buy it? Not Americans. Oh my God. Anyway. So yeah, so reading from Al Jazeera here, their response to these tariffs and, their response to the world, not just to the United States. And they're saying here, and this is Al Jazeera, China warns countries not to strike trade deals with the U.S. at its expense. China's Ministry of Commerce says appeasing the Trump administration cannot bring peace. And that is something that I agree with. So here, China has warned countries seeking exemptions from the United States President Donald Trump's tariffs not to strike deals at its expense. Beijing's warnings comes as dozens of U.S. trade partners are scrambling to negotiate relief from Trump's trade salvos, including steep reciprocal tariffs that have been paused until July. Quote, appeasement cannot bring peace and compromise will not earn respect, end quote, a spokesperson for China's Ministry of Commerce said on Monday. quote, sacrificing one's interest to obtain so-called exemptions for temporary selfish gains is akin to negotiating with a tiger. It ultimately leads to failures for both parties and harms everyone involved. While China respects the country's efforts to resolve the trade disputes with the U.S., they said they should also, quote, stand on the side of fairness and justice, end quote, and, quote, on the correct side of history, the ministry said. Quote, it is particularly important to emphasize that China firmly opposes any party achieving deals at the expense of Chinese interests, end quote, the spokesperson said. Quote, should such a situation arise, China will not accept it and will resolutely take reciprocal countermeasures, end quote. The ministry issued the statement after Bloomberg News last week reported that the Trump administration intends to push countries seeking relief from tariffs to reduce their trade with China. Oh, would you look at that? There's the real reason behind the tariffs. It's like, we're going to put tariffs on your goods, and then like, oh, no, please don't tariff me. Okay, well then you got to, do less trade with China because China is obviously succeeding on the global stage in terms of trade. I mean, just look at Africa. It's like a whole map of red, right? And, there's very real possibilities later on that we're going to see regime change actions in places like Latin America and Africa. I mean, I'm saying now, like, keep a close eye on Venezuela because the Trump administration needs a war. They need a war. And it's like they want to go to war with the cartels in America or in Mexico, but like that would be a horrible decision because, it would be right on our border, right? That would mean, again, like the reason we do wars abroad is because we don't affect anything here at home. And then we're going to go to war with the cartels who have direct supply lines into the country. Like that would be a disaster. So they want to do that, but I hope they don't, because then that would be a huge mistake. They want to go to war with Iran, but then that would, of course, destroy the global economy, the oil trade. That would be effectively nuclear war immediately. So they can't do that either. So then there might be a third option, which is Venezuela. Venezuela is at least far away enough so that, there's no direct effects. Of course, there would be a migrant crisis as a result of that. But hey, at least it won't be like terrorists, committing attacks in the country. Or at least, they're trying to say that there's Venezuelan gangs infiltrating the country. But it's like, anyway, I'm getting off track. But what I'm saying is, like, just look to have a real, like, close look at Venezuela and, like, the posturing that they're going to make militarily with them. Because this administration is going to need a war. And Venezuela could be it. I don't know. Again, let me get back on subject. Because I'm talking about global trade and, like, the actions that we're going to see later on. And I don't even mean just this administration. It could be future administrations that are going to carry these out. Because, a Democratic president very likely wants to stop China from becoming the dominant global trade partner, So, like, again, those interests are aligned. So that's what the tariffs are for, is to pressure countries to reduce trade with China. And China's saying, don't back down or we're going to do our own measures. Yeah. And I think it's interesting with the U.S. because they want to extort people and threaten people. Meanwhile, China's just like, hey, we'll just build some bridges and improve your roads. Like, who are you going to take? Like, it's obvious that the global South is going to choose China because, like, what has the U.S. and the West done for them? Anyway, U.S. officials are discussing plans to pressure trade partners to stop importing excess goods from China and impose duties on imports from specific countries with close ties to the Asian giant, Bloomberg reported, citing people familiar with the matter. That's crazy. Like, they're really trying to dictate to other countries how they should, like, tax and do their duties. It's crazy. Like, it's just unbelievable. America really believes that it owns the world. That is amazing. It's amazing, really. So while Trump announced a 90-day pause on his reciprocal tariffs on imports from dozens of countries, his administration has ramped up its trade war with Beijing by hiking import taxes on Chinese exports to as high as 145%. China, which has pledged to fight to the end if Washington continues to escalate the trade spat, has hit back by imposing duties of 125% on U.S. exports. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said that more than 70 countries have reached out to express interest in negotiating trade deals. And again, these are probably like small, like island nations or like Israel. Like they put tariffs on Israel. Yeah, it's crazy. So Japanese officials last week visited Washington to begin talks aimed at securing relief for key exports, including cars and steel, while officials from South Korea are due to kick off ministerial-level negotiations on Thursday. Despite escalating his trade salvos against China, Trump said last week that he expects to ultimately seal a, quote, a very good trade deal with Beijing. In its statement on Monday, China's Ministry of Commerce accused the Trump administration of engaging in, quote, hegemonic politics and, quote, unilateral bullying under the pretense of reciprocity. Quote, if international trade reverts to the law of the jungle, all countries will become victims, the spokesperson said. Quote, China is willing to strengthen solidarity and coordination with all parties, jointly resist unilateral bullying, safeguard legitimate rights and interests, and defend international fairness and justice, end quote. I mean, it's amazing, man. It's amazing. China's just minding its business, and they just want to trade. They just want to get the bag. That is the history of China, is trade. That's just the rough summary of China. 5,000 years of just trade and commerce. They effectively invented capitalism, really. And like, it's just unbelievable, man. Like, it's just unbelievable. And then, like, they're saying, like, here, like, we're a 5,000-year-old civilization. You think we're worried about this upstart U.S. like empire, like this? Yeah, sure. The most powerful military force on the planet, absolutely. But we're going to see now in this century that's not going to hold over as much. And again, like most of it is just like technology, advanced technology. Like I don't really know about our ground troops, especially now. I mean, we haven't really won a ground war in so long. Like we just haven't, and we're going to try to bully the world. Unbelievable, man. So as I said, they're going to certainly exert their force and influence and do these trade tariffs on countries to pressure them to step away from China. And it's going to be interesting to see which countries refuse and stand in solidarity with China, and then what comes out of that. Potential regime change plans, coups and color revolutions, right? Or just direct intervention. And as I said, Venezuela might be it, because it's like there's no nukes involved. The country's already pretty poor. It doesn't have like a modern standing army, say like Iran does. Of course, if we get involved in Venezuela, it's going to turn into a Vietnam situation. It's just crazy. Anyway, I'm getting off track. I did want to wrap up. And again, this episode is just, a short and sweet one. But I wanted to touch up on just this administration and all the stupid shit that's coming out. Of course, I was talking about the deportation and ICE arrests and such, and now these tariffs and just how stupid everything is. But this one takes the cake. These what they're calling Signal Gate, these chat leaks that are happening. Like, this takes the cake. It's amazing that this is happening. And what happened was the first leak, right? This journalist was just randomly added to the group chat, and then they're talking about bombing Yemen, and this journalist is like, what the fuck? Like, yeah, so that was weird. Like, what? You would think if you're like working in the Department of Defense, you have the contact info of a journalist, you would have like on the info, like, do not, like, you would have some sort of like note just like on the contact name, like, do not send sensitive information, or like there are journalists for The Guardian, I think it was, either The Guardian or The Atlantic, whatever. Anyway, it's just these people are so laughably horrible at their jobs. And again, these are the real Nepo babies, okay? Like, they're not qualified clearly, but they know the right people, and they just somehow get in. And then they're clearly, just out of their league, out of their depth, really. especially this Hegseth guy. He's a Fox News like anchor. Not even that, like just like a pundit. Like it's just unbelievable. And of course he had like a rant that he was making. I really think this guy is spiraling, and like they're speculating that he might get kicked out. Although Trump defends all kinds of weird people, so who knows? Like yeah, but yeah, this is a second Signal chat group chat leak that happened here, and they're of course talking about Yemen, and again just the fact that we're bombing Yemen now, like it's just out of control. We're just bombing whoever stands in our way. So U.S. This is from Al Jazeera. So U.S. Hegseth shared Yemen attack details in second Signal chat report says. United States Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth shared details about planned bombing raids on Yemen in a second Signal group chat that included his wife, brother, and personal lawyer. What the fuck? It's so stupid. Like it's like the emoji where it's like the fist pump, flame emoji, American flag. Yeah, like yeah. And then like the next text is just like, oh yeah, this guy, he went to his girlfriend's house, so we just bombed it. Like it's just so casual. Like these people are destroying lives and bombing like one of the poorest countries in the world, and it's just like, LOL, LOL. Like it's just God, it's so corny, man. These guys are corny. They don't tell you this, man. Fascists are just so pathetic and corny. But they have all that power and people's lives are destroyed because of their actions. So it's like they're obviously like silly and shouldn't be taken seriously, but then look what happens when they are out of control. So continuing. So the reports come after Hegseth attracted scrutiny last month when the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, revealed that the defense chief had shared details about upcoming airstrikes on Houthi rebels in a Signal group chat that the journalist had been mistakenly added to. Hegseth's discussion in the second group chat similarly involved planned strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen, the New York Times and CNN reported on Sunday, citing multiple unnamed sources. The information shared by Hegseth in the second chat included flight schedules for FA-18 Hornets targeting the Houthis in Yemen. The Times reported, citing people with knowledge of the chat. Listen, man, in any other instance where somebody is leaking flight schedules for fighter jets on a combat mission, immediate firing squad. Now, of course, I'm being hyperbolic, but that's the level of like to their wife. If they reveal that information to their wife, that's treason. Like that's And you got this guy, the Secretary of Defense, chatting with his wife, saying, "Oh, they're up in the air. They're like crazy." It's just crazy. Hegseth set up the second group chat before his confirmation as Defense Secretary to coordinate with members of his personal and professional inner circle. The outlet said Hegseth's brother Phil and his personal lawyer Tim Parlatore are both employed at the Defense Department, but his wife Jennifer, a former Fox News producer, is not. In response to an inquiry from Al Jazeera, Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell called the reports an old story back from the dead. Quote, the Trump-hating media continues to be obsessed with destroying anyone committed to President Donald Trump's agenda, Parnell said in the statement. Quote, this time, the New York Times and all other fake news that repeat their garbage are enthusiastically taking the grievances of disgruntled and former employees as the sole sources of their article that relied only on the words of people who were fired this week and appeared to have a motive to sabotage the secretary and the president's agenda. Parnell said no classified information had been shared in any Signal chat. Quote, what is true is that the Office of the Secretary of Defense is continuing to become stronger and more efficient in executing the President Trump's agenda. We've already achieved so much for the American warfighter and will never back down, he said, end quote. They have this weird, thing about the American warfighter. We're warriors. It's just like this operator, influencer, bullshit black coffee rifle, right? The fucking, it's so weird. What? It's so weird. And they had, this recent video, the Defense Department official Twitter page, posting this video diversity doesn't make us strong. It's the war fighter. It's just like so stupid. The DEI woke agenda. The official Department of Defense is tweeting like that, like some fucking Facebook uncle. Like, it's so funny. What the fuck? And then it's so interesting too, because now they're starting to like scrub like the history of like the history of diversity in the U.S. military, right? Like the Navajo Wind Talkers, those were like that was quietly scrubbed away. The Tuskegee Airmen, that was also taken out. Fucking Jackie Robinson, like his page, with his military service page, was also, taken down, and then I think they put it back up. And it's like they were talking about diversity. It's like again, like the U.S. military has always had roots in white supremacy. So it's like at least they're being honest about it now. Again, like any person of color who joins the military, like what are you doing? What? Any person of color or queer person joining the military. Like what? Oh man. Anyway, it's the woke. Again, we're the woke imperialism. Like that's the idea behind it. But now it's just like we're no longer woke. We're just straight up imperialists. Like that's just what I want to return to. The warfighter. So right. So let me continue. So the disclosure of military information in the First Signal group chat, which included Hegseth, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, among other top officials in Trump's administration, is currently being investigated by the Pentagon's acting inspector general. The latest controversy involving Hegseth's leadership follows a week of personal upheaval at the Pentagon. 4 members of Hegseth's inner circle, including his former press secretary John Ulliott, have been removed over the last week amid a widening probe into leaks of information. On Sunday, Ulliott said that the Pentagon was in disarray and total chaos under the defense chief's leadership. Quote, "The dysfunction is now a major distraction for the president, who deserves better from his senior leadership," Ulliott wrote in an opinion piece published by Political Magazine. Ulliott announced his resignation on Wednesday following the departures of Colin Carroll, Chief of Staff to Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Feinberg, Darren Selnick, Hegseth's Deputy Chief of Staff, and Dan Caldwell, one of Hegseth's aides. In a statement on Sunday, Carroll, Selnick, and Caldwell said they had been slandered and subjected to, quote, baseless attacks ahead of their dismissal. Quote, "All 3 of us served our country honorably in uniform. For 2 of us, this included deployments to wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And based on our collective service, we understand the importance of information security and worked every day to protect it," the 3 men said in a statement. Quote, "At this time, we still have not been told what exactly we were being investigated for, if there is still an active investigation, or if there was a real investigation of leaks to begin with," end quote. So again, the Defense Department is like, again, this is just another factor of you have these ideologues coming in and creating a shit show of what was previously a pretty organized and well-disciplined institution, the Defense Department. And you have career soldiers and career, generals who are just solely focused on running an efficient military. Some guys are truly apolitical. Like they're just straight up, just whatever orders they get, they follow it. That's just there's no higher agenda behind it. I mean, that's what the military is. You get your orders and you carry it out. So just imagine, and again, this is where the Germany parallels are just a bit too real, where you have, say, in Germany, right, you have this sort of Prussian aristocracy, officer class in these institutions that are rooted and well-disciplined. You have these career officers and generals and soldiers who they just want to run an efficient military and they do their job well. And then suddenly the Nazis come in, and then you have the SS, and then you have this sort of like politicized, ideological, like authority that you have to listen to, and then you get weird orders like, keep the 6th Army in Stalingrad, even though they have no winter clothing and no food, and they're running out of ammo. And it's just like, what? And then like, of course, the officer can't do anything about it, and then they get blamed for the failures. And it's just like, so just imagine that happening here in the U.S., where we end up in a war, an unwinnable war, And then it's like, no, we got to stay committed. And then Trump orders some terrible operation that gets soldiers killed. Like, yeah, this is just the sort of thing that's going to unfold. As I said, this administration, they're going to need a war eventually. Maybe they'll try to invade Yemen. Maybe it won't even be Venezuela. Maybe they'll try to put direct troops on the ground in Yemen, which is also going to be a disaster. But, they got to do something. So anyway, I mean, that's just this administration, the first quarter essentially, and it's not looking pretty. I mean, it's kind of surprising for me. Like, wow, they're really doing this now? Like, now they're doing it. Because they really want to get things moving, get things rolling. I think especially before these midterms come, because who knows what's going to happen with those midterms. Man, what a start. That's all I have to say. What a start. And of course, there's talk about the Salvadorian prison. And, they have the satellite images that show that maybe they're killing people and disposing people. Like, the quality is pretty low, but like, there's like patches of like red and like dark red and brown. And it's like, man, like that looks like blood, because that's what blood does when it's on, pavement or concrete and it dries out. It's sort of like a black, rusty sort of color. And yeah, man, it's not looking good. That's probably why they don't want to release him, because he's seen a lot. Yeah, but man. But that's what I wanted to touch up on. And usually I record longer episodes, but I don't know. I've been dealing with a lot of personal stuff and work stuff, and it's kind of hard sometimes to record like 5-6 hours and try to keep things in a timely manner. So I'll probably just try to record this as quick as I can and release it. But yeah, it's a lot. And, as I said, looking for apartments. In fact, I have found an apartment that I'll be moving into with a roommate. So we'll see how that works out. At least it'll reduce my living expenses, and actually I can start to, save up, financially. Because, man, I like living alone, but for the time being, it's not tenable, like, financially. And, yeah, man, I gotta downsize. And, if I live in a cheaper space, I'll have less pressure to constantly be working and doing deliveries and such. Like, now I can actually have some downtime after work and record and edit and do my research. Because again, there's a lot of stuff that I want to do, but I just don't have time for it because I'm always working. So if I can reduce my living expenses, then maybe I can be more focused and committed. Yeah. But that's what I want to touch up on here. And as I said, the recent passing of Pope Francis, it's a pretty big deal. So I just wanted to get something out and talk about him. But, it's like when you see his passing and then you see the potential that could come, who could succeed him. I'm sure there's a lot of right-wing people, especially these like trad cath, crusader idiots that are just like biting at the bit. Just like they want the super right-wing based pope who's going to call another crusade and such. Like, that's what they want. Literally, that's what they want. It's stupid. It's like what? But that's seriously what they want. Unbelievable, man. It's a new age, a new day, a new era. And, there's much suspense. And, yeah, who knows what's going to happen in June, July. Seriously, man. They're really going to push stuff. So much can happen, especially they're talking about this 90-day pause in tariffs. And, the economy was basically free-falling. And Trump is just like, I don't look at the markets. Now's a great time to buy DJT, like some cryptocurrency he's linked with. Like, he's just so stupid, man. All of it, so dumb. Anyway, I'm going to try to record this as soon as I can. Get this out. At least, I have an episode out for y'all. Yeah. This was a bit of a quick one, but, it's nice to at least record every once in a while. Sometimes I'll do the mega episodes, 5 hours or something, but that's because I have so much to discuss, and, I try to divide it between different segments and different topics. But this, something quick that I want to get out and just put some thoughts in the air. And yeah, just so you know that I'm still active, because I know I can be a little quiet. Again, I have my Twitter, x.com, so you can follow me there. That's where I mainly post, and it's nothing really like insightful. I'm just shit posting mostly, but hey, if you want to follow me there. I also have the YouTube, still also kind of inactive a bit, but it's there. And as I said, because I had other content on that YouTube that I haven't had the time to commit towards. So that's why I'm also looking forward to maybe moving into this space and then having more time to record other side content. Because, I like gaming. I want to get into that more, at least for streaming and playthroughs online. Although I have like a little laptop. So if I can move into a new space and then save up for a new computer, I could start streaming. That's another possibility. Yeah, man, I'm always asked, what's my plan? What's my career goals and plan? And this is it. I know it sounds silly. It's like, oh, you just want to be a gamer online? Hey, these people make a good living off that. So I don't need to be like Kai Cenat or anything, just something steady and, low key. Because I like living a little low key, Like that's fine. But hey, that's really all I have to say at the moment. Of course, there's much that could unfold in the next weeks or months. And I'll try to, stay on top of that and record and produce an episode for y'all. But again, I just want to let y'all know that I'm here. And I appreciate y'all listening in. If you're dealing with anything difficult, definitely hang on. Just try to look on the bright side of things, because we're all going through it. Especially now with these tariffs, everybody's going to feel it. So just know that you're not alone. It's just interesting, when I'm dealing with these conversations that I have about my stage in life, and it's like, I get it, I'm not exactly where I should be. But then again, like, a lot of people are in my situation. Like, I'm not alone. They try to make you, sometimes if you're, sort of behind, like, they try to make it as though you're this, like, unique case of failure, right? But, like, there's a lot of people in my situation struggling, okay? Who had far better resources and opportunities at their disposal. So, I'm doing okay. I try not to let it get to me, but I'm doing okay. Obviously, there's room to improve. And there's obviously plans and goals, projects that I want to build towards. But, like, there's only so much that one person can do, okay? On their own. All right, nobody really, outside of my mother, like, that's really nobody else who helps. And I don't even like asking her for help. I really don't. And luckily with this job, I haven't had to, ask for anything. And if I can move to a cheaper space, I can start giving back to her. So that's my goal. That's what I want to build towards. That's, and it takes time. So, it's unfortunate. I've dealt with a lot of instability at home. And, it doesn't exactly set you up for the most success when you're thrown out into the world. And then, of course, you have to consider the fucking pandemic that everybody wants to pretend is gone, but it's not. And that, like, oh, we're just going to go back to normal. No, there's no going back. Like, this is it. And it's only going to keep getting worse, sadly. Of course, everyone wants to be optimistic. But as you can see, we're not exactly heading towards the best of times. And that's all I want to say for now. So I appreciate y'all tuning in. Certainly check out my other platforms. As I said, Twitter, YouTube. I also have an Instagram. Again, I don't usually post as much. I have Blue Sky as well, but that's been dead. And the Threads, but that's been dead also. I don't really, like, I need like a social media manager, but that's for later. Yeah. Man. Anyway, so definitely check me out there. And also, I kind of forget to say this, but leave a 5-star review if you like what I say, if you've listened this far. I should probably have said that earlier. But certainly, if you like the work that I do, and I have pretty good ratings so far. So, it's pretty good, So definitely leave a review if you like. Check out my other platforms, or you can directly support me on Patreon, Early Access. So as little as $1, you can get early access for 48 hours, ad-free access. So that's something to consider. But yeah, appreciate y'all tuning in, and we're all in this together. Who knows what's going to happen in the next couple weeks or months, but hey, we got to look to the bright side, and we got to resist. So thank you. Love you guys. And I will see you on the next one. Thank you.